to do another video with just some of my initial impressions of this 2023 Toyota GR Corolla. I just bought it, so I'm still figuring things out. One really cool thing that I'll demonstrate now is I've got the window cracked. You can hear the blow-off valve. Let me get up over this hill. I don't know if that was captured on the camera, but you can hear the turbo spool up, and you can definitely hear the blow-off valve. I've never had a car factory stock quite like that, where you could really hear the blow-off valve. You can't hear it as much when the window is up, but you can definitely hear it when the window is down. Now, another thing about the power delivery of this car is it definitely doesn't have much power below 3,000 RPMs. I think that's when it really starts kicking in, and it seems to keep pulling harder and harder as you get higher up in the rev range. And the power never drops off. It pulls hard all the way up to red line. I've already bounced this off the rev limiter a couple times. If you saw my Otis 60 video, you could see that. The steering feel is spot on. You can still tell it's electric, but not really. I mean, it is very well connected to the road, very good feedback, very good weighting. I have it in sport mode. Another thing is the exhaust. It's very deep. In fact, I'm not sure how they got it to sound that deep. And one really cool thing that I think even in the Elantra N it didn't have this, is you can actually feel some vibration, like at certain RPMs. The engine will like vibrate the whole car. I mean, it just gives it such a visceral feeling to drive it, and the sounds. And you know, this doesn't have any crackles or pops, but you don't really need it in this car. I mean, just the depth, the character, the vibration. You can feel the engine in the seat and in the steering wheel. You can hear it in the whole body. Now, it's not constant. It's only at certain RPMs and certain levels of acceleration that you can feel that. As far as seat comfort goes, I find it okay. It's not as good as the Elantra N was. The shape is a little bit off. My initial thoughts were that it was pretty comfortable, but it's fine. I've sat in a lot worse. One thing I've noticed is it is kind of cramped in here, and I may just have the seat up too far, but my leg kind of bumps up against that. I didn't have an issue like that in the Elantra N. It's not horrible. I don't really intend this to be a long trip kind of car. Let's see, I'm in second gear here. Let me just do a quick pull. I think you could hear the blow-off valve there, even with the windows closed. I gotta make sure that I'm not on recirc. I may have to just crack the window a little bit. I'm just starting to steam up a little bit. Now you really could hear the blow-off valve there. The three-cylinder engine note takes some getting used to, but I find I'm already starting to get used to it. And going to say there, it seemed like maybe the boost really kicks in above 4,000 RPMs. But yeah, I'm starting to get used to the sound of the three-cylinder exhaust note. Now right there you probably could hear some of the depth, and probably like around 3,000 RPMs you feel a lot more of the vibration. control, very good driver feedback. The integration between the driver, the clutch, the shifter, it's all fantastic. Really particularly love the feel of the shifter going into and out of the gears. It's just really got a nice feeling to it. Very, again, mechanical, very precise. Yeah, I'd go so far as to say it's as good as the shifter feel was on my 2008 BMW 550i M Sport. I had the 6-speed in that, and that was one of the best shifters I've ever felt. The one in the Elantra N was pretty good as well. No real complaints there. I like how they have your water temp, oil temp, and oil pressure there. Seems like temperature management's pretty good. I've heard some other videos of people who track these cars that say certain things overheat after 12 to 15 minutes on a track. That'll never be a concern of mine, because basically the type of driving you see me doing right now is the type of driving I'll do throughout my ownership of the car. So that was a little bit of acceleration at 3,000 RPMs. It definitely still has a decent amount of torque. I'm going to drop it down to 2,000 and give it a little bit of... Yeah, just not a whole lot under 3,000. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it definitely... gotta watch on these roads. These big trucks are kind of crazy. I mean, even under 3,000 RPMs, there is a decent amount of torque. But over 3,000 RPMs is when it really, really comes to life. So let's see, what else do I have to say initially? I would definitely recommend one of these if you're looking for something sporty and unique. Now, I got the Core model, and it's really not that showy. So I actually don't expect this car to get much, if any, attention. Now, that being said, my Elantra N didn't really get any attention either. The only car I've owned, well, typically old cars have gotten attention, like really old cars that I've driven in the past, and my G-Wagon, that thing was an attention magnet. But I don't expect this to get much attention unless I encounter a fellow car enthusiast along the way, and then maybe only positive attention. So if you saw my walk around video, you see this has black wheels with red calipers, but it doesn't have any of like the hood vents or anything like that are on some of the other trims. So it's kind of a more subdued car. So this, for all practical purposes, it just looks like a sporty Corolla. So I think it'll really fly under the radar. As I'm driving, I noticed the seat is kind of similar to the one in my 540D, in that it's the seat bottom is kind of bolstered on the sides, and if you're not sitting perfectly in the middle of it, it can pinch a little bit. I mean, nothing major, just a little observation. The leather on the steering wheel feels very nice. It's got the size and shape of the steering wheel. It's round. None of the crazy stuff like on the new 540D. That was just weird. The layout of the steering wheel is pretty nice. I haven't bothered to learn where all the buttons are and what they do yet. I'll get around to that. And it's got the GR button. This particular car, oh man, that sun is at a horrible angle. This particular car came with the limited slip differentials, the JBL stereo system, and the cold weather pack. Actually, I think the JBL system was called the technology pack. It had a couple other things. It has the emergency kit, which I haven't bothered to open and see what's in it yet. Let's do it quick. Another thing is, it's kind of hard to put things like this into words, but the general feel and driving satisfaction of this, I'm gonna say this is above the Elantra N. There's definitely, I think it's just the visceral feel of driving this car. The Elantra N, and I didn't realize this at the time I owned it, not until I drove this car, but there's actually, it's like one step removed in terms of driver connection compared to this car. This car is actually a more pure driver's car. It just has much more of a connected feel with the driver connection to the car. And yeah, I'd have to say that this is definitely a favorite in terms of just driving dynamics, driving feel, and stuff like that. I love that you can hear that blow-off valve when you accelerate and release off. And the power delivery is just very nice. I like a progressive power, a progressive torque curve. I really like a progressive torque curve. In other words, something that's not extremely linear and pulls harder as you get higher up into the rev ranges. Let's see, I got a little bit of a straight stretch here. Let me just... Yeah, it seems like there's just two points where the power picks up more. Like, well, maybe three, like at 3,000 RPMs and then 4,500 and maybe even a little bit above that. It just pulls harder the higher up in the RPMs you are. And I really enjoy that. I think in the Elantra N, the power was a bit more linear. And I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but I think this makes for a more satisfying driving feel when it pulls harder as it gets higher up in the rev range. So anyway, those are my initial thoughts about this car. Very happy I was able to find one of these. You know, it's kind of funny. The only way you can really get one of these cars to drive is to buy one. You can't really test drive these, and I don't blame the dealers, because people typically don't want one of these to have been test driven before somebody buys it. The salesperson was very intent on making sure I knew the car wasn't test driven. He told me it came off the truck with 5 miles, and then, you know, pulling it into and out of the shop and driving it around the lot. I mean, well, somehow they accumulated a couple more miles. It had 8 miles on it when I first sat in it. And technically he did let me do a test drive, but it was just around the parking lot. I just basically wanted to get the feel. Avoid that. Just wanted to get the feel for the clutch, the steering, and everything. That's all the further I drove in Elantra N before deciding I wanted one of those as well. And let's see, I'm coming up to a stop here, so we will stop and make sure nobody's coming. I like the way the clutch grabs in this thing too. I mean, it's not abrupt, and it's not jerky, but it is very, it's on. Once it connects, it's on. I can't think of the word I'm looking for there. It is just very, very strong. It's a strong clutch, and the engagement is just very sharp. I guess that's the word I'm looking for, sharp. So let's see here. I've got to come to an intersection here, make sure nobody's coming. Yeah, there's also like no vagueness anywhere. Let's see, I'm just find 6th gear and kind of cruise along very lightly in 6th gear. So yeah, all right. I know I keep giving false endings to this video, but I think for now I have said all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna